And because of consequences of crisis, because of demographic changes, and also because of other aspects, there is a quite large group of households not being able to obtain and keep their housing on a free market. And therefore, social housing reserved, aimed at socially defined target group is a very important part of not only housing policy but also social policy in general. And European Structural Investment Fund should support growth, jobs, but also social cohesion, inclusive way of growth and jobs. And therefore housing availability of affordable and social housing should be part of the overall policies and should be, in the opinion of the Czech Republic, used also for social housing construction, refurbishment.
We need to integrate environmental considerations. We need to integrate the consideration of mitigation and adaptation of climate change into our urban plans, our urban designs, and with the redevelopment of maybe some abandoned or unused areas inside cities, because it is important it is important to avoid the consumption of greenfield and to try to reuse the land which has been previously developed. These key objectives, these key principles must be integrated into the notion of integrated sustainability, which is really important at the urban scale and which is the key challenge for tomorrow.
I think it's very important to continue to develop the social housing sector to respond to the challenges that the future may bring. And we know that the future will bring a demographic challenge. There will be an aging of the population. And I think it's very important that the social housing sector will cope with this challenge.
First sentence is that from my point of view and from problems which faced my country, it was the refugees and the technical regulations and the standards which are regulate the construction and design of the social housing and affordable housing. It should include some types of house which are for the refugees, because this is not actually the social house as we understand it. It is much particularly for the IDPs, and the IDPs sometimes are the people, and mostly people are who paid taxes for the government for the many years, and they graduated from the universities, and they have a wide range of the things they have done already. So this is very important to understand that the refugees and the houses for the refugees are not the same as the social housing. Because when we started to build these houses, we tried to find any data and the experience of the other countries, and we found a lot of documents concerning the social housing and affordable housing, recommendations, but it was not particular for the refugees. But unfortunately, we did not have any chance to do something new, so we used some of this documentation to build the refugees' houses. And my recommendation is to do some type of new recommendation or new guidelines or guidebooks for the refugee houses for the refugees.
Housing policy should be integrated together with other policies. We have, for example, I refer to vulnerable groups that they are not able to afford even social programs for housing, like social housing, because social housing is an expensive program, and those that benefit from social housing, they should have at least a minimum income to pay a minimum rent. While such community like Roma community or rural community also, they don't have this even this amount of income to pay and to contribute for rent. So we have to think of programs that integrate their training and employment with housing. And one of the initiatives that we are developing now is under a title which sounds more or less like that in English, get educated to get a job to get a home. So we want to link education with training, with employment and with housing. So this is, we think that this is a way how to address the most vulnerable groups, those that have no education, those that have no any particular skill in for being able to enter into the labor market.
Definitely, it's very important to have the stability of instruments in housing policy. Secondly, it is very important to have long-term vision before deciding on introducing any kind of instrument. And it is really very important to follow how the instruments introduced, how they influence development in the housing, and to try to update them appropriately, but not to cancel them and to come with something totally new, because this is what experience showed, that the best way is really to develop some long-term instruments.